Hello and welcome to another episode of Time Extend Revo. My name's Adam Ismail, and today I'm joined by Brendan Morrison and Paul Lavelle, and we're going to talk about a little game named Screamer that has caused a lot of discussion, some really strong praise, some derision, some confusion. It's been in the shadow of, Forza Horizon 6 right around the corner. It's consumed a lot of conversation. And I think what's interesting about this is that this particular podcast is that I love the game. I'm very hot on it. Brend, I think it's fair to say you like it.
Yeah, I'd say I'm kind of in the middle, and then, of course.
Yeah, and then we got Paul, who...
less so.
I just want to hear Paul go off
Okay.
on all of Screamer's problems.
Yeah. Can I get the obligatory Screamer hardly know her joke out the way first?
Yes.
That's my input today, guys. Good pod.
Nice. A nice, tight, minute 35 podcast.
Well,
That's what
you
you
have
want.
been saying you wanted shorter ones to edit, mate. So.
Exactly. Oh, man. So I'll talk a little bit about just really quickly how I came into this game, because full disclosure, like I get a fair amount of racing game publishers reach out to me and ask me if I'm interested in reviewing their games. A lot of the time, it's down to what I have time to actually review and actually check out and devote the proper time to. Because if I'm going to pick up a game, especially if it's like a bigger one, and I'm only going to give it like an hour and a half or 2 hours and I write about it, I don't feel good, or I don't feel like that's fair for me to give like a proper evaluation of it. So a lot of the time, I have to pass on things. And I was almost going to pass on Screamer, except for the fact that there are a lot of people who are interested in it. When the game was announced, like 2024, I think, it got a lot of press, got a lot of buzz. And in our own Discord, in our own community, in like racing game circles and stuff, people who like arcade racers were like immediately interested in this game. I don't generally like most Milestone games. Before this, I would have said that the only Milestone game I actually ever liked was Apex on the Xbox, or Racing Evolution, for those of you not in America. I thought that was a pretty cool game, but don't like their motorcycle racers, really. Hot Wheels Unleashed, I think, is pretty boring. Ride, is like kind of like, you have to kind of fool yourself into thinking it's anything as good as Tourist Trophy. So that's where I stood on Milestone in the past. And I mean, I was just immediately blown away. Like there's so much more just ambition behind this title. And I guess maybe a good place to start is first impressions. I mean, that was mine, was like, wow, for a studio that previously, really had no sort of seemingly artistic ambition or narrative ambition, to make a heavily story-driven like arcade racing game like this with like a very cohesive like world and characters and all that stuff, before you get into how it actually plays, like I didn't expect them to go this hard. So that's how I will come out of the gate. But before I continue, what was your first impression?
Yeah, I mean, I guess right from the announcement of the game, it did get revealed, I'm sure, at either one of Jeff Keighley's video game bonanzas, the Summer Games Fest or the Game Awards. I can't remember for the life of me which it was. I'm thinking maybe Game Awards, but
I think it was Game Awards.
Yeah. So like, obviously that was kind of intriguing right off the bat, because I mean, racing games are basically sacrilege at those events. Famously kind of lumped in with sports games when it comes to an award for best racing game. You don't usually see much racing games there, right? So like you were saying, Adam, the fact that we had a racing game there, and I mean, I didn't even know Screamer was a thing, in terms of like, it's never really been on my radar in any capacity whatsoever. So I thought it was an entirely new IP, and then turned out not to be the case, obviously, as people in the Time Extend Discord quickly pointed out at the time. But yeah, like you were saying, Adam, I think like right off the bat it was really interesting because it actually looked fairly premium, and I guess like in there's probably a better technical term for this, but it's sure of itself and its styling and what it was trying to actually put across. Like it didn't have that kind of generic kind of realistic arcadey look to it, or that kind of overly kind of in your face colourful kind of indie look either. It was very much like it kind of had a nice kind of cool look to it, and the card designs, of course, right away stood out. So, like, I remember seeing it at first, and then, like, I just didn't think about it ever again after that point. Like, it didn't really come into my consciousness at all. But if there's one thing I do have massive trust in, it's the Ismail stamp of approval. So, when this game actually was coming out, and then you were starting to talk a bit positively about it, despite my trepidations of the dual stick steering, having despised inertial drift when I played that, I decided to give it a go, and obviously we'll go into our in-depth details soon, but in terms of how I got here initial impressions-wise, I think that's kind of it. I was very impressed with the reveal and what it looked to be trying to achieve, and then in terms of actually wanting to play it, I wasn't until I seen the kind of glowing reception you gave, Adam, and just in general what other people were maybe kind of saying on the run-up to the release as well. So yeah, I'd say that's kind of the very first thoughts I've had about the game pre-playing it.
Yeah. What about you, Paul? And also, were you familiar? Because Bren said he wasn't. I knew of Screamer, but I never played it. You needed a PC to play it back in the day. Were you familiar with that game?
I was, yeah, and I played it a couple of times in, was it 95, I think it came out. I had a 486 PC, and I'd play Doom in a small window, because that was the only way you could run it at a frame rate. And I remember playing Screamer, the MS-DOS version of Screamer. But that was a very, very long time ago, and I didn't play it very often. But it was like PC Ridge Racer, effectively. That's kind of all I remember about it. Yeah, but it was. Yeah,
this is
cool.
the one aspect of this episode that Andrew will be jealous he's not on.
Yeah,
he could just talk about probably a 486 PC for a long time.
That's right. Yeah. But they did a sequel, but I didn't actually know they did a sequel to it originally back in the day until more recently. But then, saw it at these Game Awards, and I was like, oh, I wonder if that's linked to the original game, and it kind of is loosely, I guess. But like you guys say, has such a impactful style, doesn't it? They are very confident about it. It's all fits together so beautifully from a visual point of view, like the characters and the car designs and that lighting and the art and the tracks and everything. The whole aesthetic is cool. It's great. And then I think like you guys, it was a couple of years ago it was announced, and then it went quiet, and then it's kind of come out of nowhere, which is something I guess maybe we'll talk about, like its kind of lack of presence in the online space. Let's say, I mean, if I boot a PS5 up and go to the store, it was there for a little bit, and you don't see it anymore now. It's all Crimson Desert or whatever else is coming out next. So and then I saw you talking about Adam, and came from there. I was like, oh yeah, it's out. Cool. It's suddenly come along very quickly.
Yeah, I think there will definitely be a lot. I think the back end of this show, we can talk about some other things as far as the price and the promotion or lack thereof, that, things that have kind of stood in this game's way, it seems, out of the gate. But so seems like we're all pretty much in agreement, like being surprised by it when it emerged. For those of you who haven't been following it, because I honestly wasn't. I knew that the game was coming out. Didn't know exactly when until I got something in my inbox about it from Milestone's PR folks, and then I didn't even know about like the twin stick thing. I started reading up on the game very quickly when I was going to review it, and I had a lot of trepidation about that. I had never played Inertial Drift, but I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a Milestone game that I particularly thought handled well or was really fun to play, at least in the last like 20 years or something. So I was concerned. And when I first picked up the game, the main attraction is the tournament mode, the story mode, essentially. And it is, if you haven't been following it, it is all narrative driven. There is a long story to play the whole thing. And if you're not doing many like restarts or anything like that, like I was able to get through on the balanced difficulty. Difficulty is definitely going to be a part of this discussion too, because everyone seems to find it differently. But I got through on the balanced difficulty with a couple of races where I had to do, maybe 5, 6, 7 retries, but for the most part, it was pretty straightforward. And it took me, I clocked, I think, 14 hours from the beginning to the end. So it is a beefy story mode for a racing game. There are some cutscenes that are done by, unfortunately, I can't remember the name, but this prolific, anime studio. And the cutscenes look gorgeous. In total, there's like 30 minutes of cutscenes in the story. You see them through like interspersed, like 15-second, 30-second, minute-long cutscenes. Every few chapters, you might see a cutscene. And those are really cool. But the bulk of the story obviously plays out through like this kind of visual novel. You have these like character designs, which the character designs themselves, like the car designs, like we're talking about, they're all really cool. But when you're in like the dialogue portion of the visual novel, like nothing is animated, right? So you have to be comfortable with a lot of text boxes and stuff like that. I don't play a lot of those. I don't play any of those games, frankly. So it did feel a little cringy, I have to admit, like as I'm playing the game and hearing the story and the characters talking.
It's anime.
And like everything, it's anime, right? And like I have been known to enjoy some of that, but there were times where I think especially I want to immediately talk about the story. The story's not good. The story is silly and stupid, but I have this ability to get really invested in things, even if they're dumb. Like if there's enough conviction, and clearly there is in this case, right? I mean, every character is voiced, every line is voiced, the voice actors all do in their own languages, which is really cool. There's this sort of contextual, like in the story, there's this way that all of the characters, because it's in the future and stuff, and they have technology, they can all speak their own languages and still understand each other. And that's really cool. And I just I get really excited by like when I see a studio that has that much conviction, right? So even if the story's dumb, unless the story's like offensively terrible, which this one, it's not good, but it's not offensive, like I can buy in, right? And yeah, from there it was just like getting used to the mechanics, which are definitely a sticking point. The drifting, I did not like it first until I changed the camera. The camera made this game for me. The chase cam really is like, it's completely unlocked to the back of the car. So you'll see the car go almost like perpendicular with your viewport when you're drifting. And I can't play games like that. Like I have a really hard time. But I found the drifting actually very intuitive once I switched to the hood cam. And yeah, I think from there, just my next focus was just getting a grip on the cars themselves, because they all behave very differently, which is another really important wrinkle of this game. And I think, everybody has kind of a favorite, but there are some characters that just like they all they do is drift, and then there are some that like don't drift so much, and you have to depend more on the left stick for just normal steering a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I
think that's one of the, not moving on too quickly with our discussions, but the struggles I had with it was you would jump in between cars so frequently. Well, but between every race, you never really got time to get used to it. Although, based on how many retries it took me for some of the events, what I counted, one of them was like 30 retries. I just couldn't do it. Getting used to the cars. But I think I'm the same as you. I switched out of chase cam. As much as I like seeing the side of the car, we used to do that in Need for Speed, and it was kind of cool seeing it, but it doesn't really help from a gameplay point of view, I don't think. So I went to hood cam, and then you get the vibrating car like Daytona, and that's really cool. It's a shame you have to do it every time you start a race, because it forgets you're sitting.
Yeah, that's really annoying. I wish they could just do a patch and just have it.
I would imagine
choose a default. Yeah,
they'll fix it at some point, I'm sure. But that really helped massively with the handling. Although I still never felt I got 100% grip, got to grips with the handling. Like I was always hitting walls, which I think goes on to why the exploding, the overdrive thing. I never felt like I reached that skill level of not colliding quite frequently with the walls, which made some of those events quite tricky.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't use the hood cam once. I was full on chase cam for the whole game, because like, if we're
you're
talking,
a world record holder too.
Yeah, somebody's already beat that time, actually. Okay. So, yeah.
Well, you were.
Yeah, I was top of the leaderboard, like 4 people in it. The 5th guy turned up and the record went. But, yeah, I think, like, the reason I stuck with the chase cam as well, because it is kind of disorientating at first, is, like, if I'm willing to, like, kind of... Like, when I go into a game like this, I'm not really trying to play it, first of all, from the perspective of being good at it, right? Because it's more about the experience of playing it. This is outside of before the difficulty kicks in, right? Which is a totally different argument. But I wanted to kind of experience the game in its kind of most cool form, I guess, in terms of what they're trying to do and show off. And obviously, the chase cam does have more style over actual substance for helping you play the game properly.
Yeah.
But I feel like it really just helps kind of show off this idea of what the screamer vehicles can actually do, right? So I kind of stuck with the chase cam for that alone. But then also, we've talked about this when it comes to other games before, like Sega Rally and that sort of thing as well. Like Sega Rally Revo gets a really bad rep in terms of the chase cam, for example. Or I can't remember if people dislike Free or Revo more, but like for one of those, like I remember at the time it kind of getting criticised for being too loose. Probably Revo then, actually.
Yeah, because Free's locked, right?
Yeah, Free's locked, and Revo isn't, unless you use a wheel on Revo and then it's locked. Yeah. Right. But like for me, it was just like that was kind of to kind of fully embrace that coolness factor, I guess. I felt it was really kind of crucial to have that as part of the experience. Now, obviously, difficulty-wise, that kind of skews the argument because for a lot of people, it has been a very difficult game. So I can absolutely see why, to get a grounding on the handling, the hood cam would be more preferred, because I'm assuming it just gives you a bit more actual feel for what's happening with the car, because the chase cam is so augmented and cinematic by comparison. But I managed to make it through, like, using the chase cam the whole time, and I felt like by the end of the game, with the exception of some cars, like you say, because some of them are really difficult to drive, like Gabrielle's and such, but I felt as if I was actually fairly comfortable, played on the balance difficulty through, and there was a few events here and there that I had to retry, mostly related to the kind of asinine objectives they throw at you sometimes, and I guess we'll talk about that in a second, but to kind of like talk a bit about the story, just because it came up, and I guess it's the natural starting point, not in terms of spoilers or actual plot beats, but I think one of the main issues I had about this game story-wise is that I feel there was a real kind of cognitive dissonance between what was happening in the cutscenes and then what the game would set up in terms of gameplay. So it felt like it was kind of caught between two minds of, do we teach the player about this system, or do we kind of actually lean into whatever's happening in the story? Because you never find out at any point in the entire game how the Screamer tournament actually works, how the point system works, and how that actually dictates what teams are placed where. You'll just be doing random events, and then at one point in the story it will be, oh, the Green Reapers are 2 points off the leader, and it's like, do they get points in the way that the team races work, as in like for KOs and winning, or is this like related to overall standings? Like, I felt it was weird, like for a game it yaps a lot, like they did kind of decide not to cover some story beats. I feel would have just made it a bit more of a tight package. So I think like actually tying into this idea that there is a leaderboard and this leaderboard changes, and every time you do a race, here's how it influences the actual tournament that's getting on. Without any of that visibility, it just makes everything kind of feel like it's happening in isolation, like a monster of the week type beat, which is fine, right? Like it's kind of like how you'd watch Power Rangers or whatever, and like every 7th episode the big bad would be there, even though guy's been gone for the past 4 episodes. Like if that's kind of the way they were scheduling it, then fine, but it just made it so like whenever I was in the story elements, is like you're saying, Adam, I was trying to get as invested in it as possible because it's the main appeal of the game. I did find it really interesting just how like it's so funny how often this particular story beat in another game comes up, but there wasn't that kind of R-Race and Evolution moment where it's like mid-race, you've got to throw this race, you can't finish first. Just stuff that actually ties into what dialogue is being said, and in a similar vein, they just don't really exploit that at all during the races, which is really interesting because multiplayer has all like call-outs for the characters, but in terms of dialogue mid-race, you don't really get anything that kind of ties it together on either side of the experience. So it does feel like, I've seen some people say, a visual novel with little racing bits in between. Like it just that there's because even in the the post-race cutscenes are speaking, it always feels like they're doing their best not to talk about the race that's just happened. Like, it's just like, that's just a byproduct of what they already wanted to talk about before they decided to race a lot of the time. So for me, that's where I feel a lot of the issue is, and I'm coming at this from the perspective of somebody that's played quite a lot of these kind of cringy visual novels, right? So I'm talking like, I'm a massive fan of like Danganronpa, for example, which is like a fucking crazy, like batshit insane murder game type beat, but it's so over the top, similar to Screamer, and it commits to the bit so much that when the gameplay pieces that happen in that game, which is equivalent of like a trial, like a Phoenix Wright type experience, it all kind of, it marries together and it feels legit, whereas in Screamer, it does feel as if there's a story they do want to tell and there's a game they want to make, but they never quite committed to actually kind of tying them in a bow together. So I guess that's where a main criticism is for me. I really appreciate the effort in terms of the art, the cutscenes especially, and the voice acting, of course, which is generally across the board for a game like this, as cringy and fun as it needs to be, right? The cast have done a great job. I just feel as if it was really strange how I feel like you could do every single race and not have a clue there's a story happening in the background, because it never really factors into what's happening. Yeah,
that's how Paul played the game. He just skipped all the story.
I played the first full. Was it? Okay, so there's 4. Let's call them chapters, right? 4 main chapters.
Right. Yeah.
So I did the first full one, watched all the cutscenes. So the second one, I watched maybe half, and after that, I was skipping them. So I assume, onto your point, Brent, it was that they only have a certain amount of gameplay levers they can pull from the game side to actually change the game mechanics on the track.
Yeah, so
and the story was completely separate, effectively, and then they just intertwine, introducing systems as they go through the game, and they're not really linked. But one thing I noticed that you made a really good point there is that only some races that I remember you actually dialogue coming up with text boxes on the right hand side of the screen. Yes, and I think that was a real shame. And that made me think about when we did Grid Legends, and we had obviously the story mode in that, you have all the cutscenes. And then we actually got them back in, some of them back in to re-record stuff for in-race stuff, to add bits here and there and voiceovers and stuff.
It adds to it, right?
It felt empty otherwise, and it needed it. And we didn't get Shooty Gatwa back in because he was probably too expensive, but we had some of the other guys come in and do bits and pieces. So I think you're right. What that is, and when it's there, it's like, oh yeah, it's cool. And actually, one thing I noticed was, and it's probably my fault for skipping, was one of the objectives was beat this dude, and I was like, I can't remember, I don't know who the fuck that is. I got no idea. I mean, I happened to come first, so it didn't matter anyway. But it could have been 4th or 5th on that race. It was so funny. Yeah. And that's another thing. On the top of the cars, why hasn't it got the icons with the name or the avatar? It's on the left hand side of the app.
It's on the left hand side with it's hidden. It's kind of a bit tough to see.
But then you got the team races have the names above it. I think if it had the icons, I don't know, maybe that would be better.
Even before the race, Grid does this too, doesn't it? Right, the kind of Nemesis-like system where it's like, if you've got to beat a certain character, why not on the start line show the car first a little bit? Sonic Crossworlds, for example, has a really cool rival system. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen any of this, but like, if Sonic and Shadow are in a race, they will have a very specific dialogue between each other before the race starts, like, to kind of basically establish that's who you need to beat. So like, that's what I mean about like Screamer commits so much, but like it spends so much time on the yapping part without maybe just the little bit of window dressing around it to tie it together more as an experience. Like, say, for example, those 5-lap races, which, totally different subject. I don't think any race in Screamer needs to be 5 laps, by the way.
Yes, absolutely.
But say if you get to lap 5, right? And then scripted bullshit, whatever, just like have it so like when you get over the finish line, a mid-race small cutscene kicks in where the guy that you're supposed to be beating the whole race is now in second. And he basically, like, I'm coming for you, mate. Like, just little things like that would just
little
kind
quips.
I guess, give it that bit of gravitas in there, because they do something insanely cool with the very last event of the game, right? And the reason it stood out so much to me is because there was also none of that, like, an event for so much of the game. And yeah, that's, and this is the thing, it's their first attempt at doing something like this, so it's very much talking from the perspective of, like, even in Grid Legends, Paul, you guys already had the kind of universe built up of Raven West and all that sort of stuff to kind of lean on in some capacity. Absolutely, but I think if there was to be a Screamer 2, less of the visual novel portrait talking and more of the people are here for the racing and the story. You can merge them together fine. People have time trial, score attack, whatever, if they want to have a kind of proper like racing experience uninterrupted. But I feel like there was definitely a little bit of disconnect between what was happening on the track and what the story was progressing.
Yeah.
There are a couple thoughts I have in relation to all of that, which I agree with. One is that I'm not a narrative writer, right? So I don't know what the term for this would be, but the term I've invented is narrative convenience, when you just randomly introduce elements of a story because you need them, and they were never introduced before. There's at one point in the game, it's introduced that a character apparently comes from like a loaded family, and this results in like a very big emotional like sort of epiphany for them. And it was never before introduced that this was the case. And there are all these, and the points are a perfect example of that. And a meme I've seen that I think, I don't know if it came from our Discord, but I saw in their Discord, is just the classic, like, whose lines in a way, Drew Carey, everything's made up and the points don't matter. That's literally how it feels in the tournament mode. It's just, they need the Green Reapers to, like, they need to put you in the Green Reapers car. They need to put you in Hiroshi's car in this event. So now the Green Reapers are in the lead. When they need to put you in Gabrielle's car, then it'll change in like 3 races, right? And so it definitely suffers from that. And also to the point of like what's happening in between the races, not playing out in the races. It's really funny how like, I mean, so in Screamer, you can obviously, wreck KO competitor cars. And there is a narrative reason, a story reason for how you're essentially you are dying, but you're being brought back to life by the Echo, which is the machine in the car that enables all this craziness,
Super
right?
cool.
Nobody wants to die except for Frederick. Nobody wants to die, generally speaking. So what's really funny is you'll have a lot of races in this game, in the story mode, where like there are a bunch of like, the Strike Force Romando races are a lot like this, where it's like they're very much like a team. They're very much together. They don't have as much of the infighting as the other teams do. So like, all 3 of them will go on the track, and like Ritz goes down because she's like there's a board like sort of the character, like there's nothing interesting about her, but then the other characters make her feel better. So like, Hina will be like, let's go race, like let's go pump each other up, and then they'll be like fucking killing each other on track, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why would these people be murdering each other on the track? It's just weird. I mean, even I shouldn't reveal. There was something I wanted to talk about, but there's some characters you just don't, maybe some creatures in cars you just don't want to hurt. And it's I don't know. It definitely feels like there's that disconnect, and I was able to kind of like suspend the disbelief, or just the kind of bullshit of it, right, and just go on with it. More of the dialogue and stuff in race would be cool for sure. And there's definitely a way that they can tie it better. I mean, the example I always go back to is like, and I know it's trite and everyone would, but like Ridge Racer Type 4 has like the barest like whiff of a story, and it's still somehow extremely emotional. Like it still somehow works and is like really gripping. Yeah. Not a gripping story, but maybe like a gripping like kind of purpose to everything you're doing. And like Screamer, it wants that, but sometimes it can't quite bring it home.
It wants it for every character, though, doesn't it? Like that's the thing about it. It's like, I don't know if you felt this, Paul, especially because you fell off the story so quickly, but like that first hour or 2 hours where it's just like every single individual in this tournament really has it rough, or there's some crazy melodrama going on, and you're just kind of like, Jesus, does anybody actually just like driving here, or like is that just off the table? Like, and obviously as the story progresses, and Adam, you know what I'm talking about directly here. Like, you do get to that point where, I guess Screamer 2 then has that little bit more levity potentially. But it was the IG interview actually. Is it Luke Riley? Is that his name? The racing. Yeah, Luke Riley. He made a really good point, but it's like you get about 3 hours into this game and you feel like you've missed the first season. Like
Yep.
Every character's already, because it's like everybody's
yeah.
already went through the trauma and such that we'll reveal to you 2 months and 4 days before the tournament, 4 months before the tournament, 6 months, 3 days and 1 minute. Yeah, so it just comes hot out the gate, like at that point where you're just like, wow, okay, like this is definitely an approach to take. Even not establishing what a Screamer tournament is. Like, it's just this already existed. This guy was a pro in whatever this looks like, because it certainly wasn't Echo based, because that didn't exist before. So what exactly were the Scream, like, what did that look like before it became this illegal version of it with closed off tracks? Like, I think that's where once again, when you, it's very harsh because it's a racing game at the end of the day, right, to go into this detail. But Screamer set this up, not me. They're the ones who went down the story-based route, so you've got to start thinking about how all these bits kind of come together. And
you do.
Yeah, even like Noboru, for example. If you met him yet, Paul, the guy, it's like Yakuza guy that's like scared to drive. Yeah. You could have had the event where the crash happened. You could have played that. Like, they could have made that something that you... Because they sure as hell made us do other events we didn't want to do, like, in between. So, like... Just, it's really interesting to me, like, the whole idea of a Screamer tournament, what it looked like pre-becoming illegal for whatever reason, once again. Or is it just completely illegal, or is there still Screamer tournaments? I can't remember if they addressed that. But
it might have always been illegal. But again, the fact that we can't even freaking remember, and it's like...
Because
they
a lot
don't
happened.
explain it enough. And then... Oh my God, so much happens. I think that something that a lot of people keep going back to, rightly so, I think, is that like every character has it rough. All but one absolutely hate everything that's going on in their lives and don't want to be there, right? And I think that's why like Lavinia has become sort of like the one outlier that everyone can agree is great. Because like when you're introduced to her early in the game, I was just like, she's incredibly annoying and I'm going to hate this. But all of the other characters just descends to just such annoying, pitiful places. Actually, also except for Frederic. But Frederic's kind of more just like... I mean, honestly, I want to know more about Frederic. That's a problem. He's a cool guy. Like, the game doesn't really explore him at all. He's just kind of like there as like a foil to the 2 kids that he doesn't want to like half raise, you know? And Quinn, who's obviously not there. So it's just like, when there is so much angst, I think, Brent, you said it, like every anime, you know, run of the mill, whatever, it's got to have like that kind of zany character that's like happy to be there, like some kind of engine. I think you said like, I know you're a big One Piece fan. I don't know anything about One Piece, but like Luffy or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
Goku,
and like
or
Goku,
like...
sure, yeah. And like, it doesn't have enough of that. Instead, it just has like angst on angst on angst.
Yeah. I was thinking when I was playing it, and one thing you guys mentioned there, it could have done with an intro, like a CG intro, like considering the budget of the game, which actually is very impressive, like all the dialogue and stuff. Like I remember like thinking about even MotorStorm had like introduced what it was about, like born in the shadows on the dust and all that. And, and it had the cameras pulling up, and it was cool. I fucking love that intro. I think it was great. And the original PS3 game, and it was a festival and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it had, like even things introducing the characters in slick cutscenes, like a Guy Ritchie style where the camera freezes and talks about this guy. Cool. That's anything. Just like, but you jump in, it's like, well, someone's died and we got to take revenge. Like, who? What the fuck? I was like, have I skipped?
What person dying are you talking about there, Paul? Because there's quite a few.
Have I? No, like literally the first cutscene, like the first thing is like, yeah, we're gonna get revenge on this dude. This like, what? Hold on, have I skipped the intro here or something?
Yeah.
What's happened? Yeah. So
well, there's this game also. The other thing too is like, yeah, it falls back hard on the trope of like every character is going to be motivated by a trauma related to a death that happened off screen, that happened before you started playing the game. So you just have to trust and believe that they really, really care about and they're really angry, you know? And that's kind of a weak place to start. I didn't expect us to talk so much about the story. I actually kind of like that we are. Because I get like
it's a big part of the game though, right? It really is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
it's against all sense, but I mean, it, you know, not giving anything away, but it just goes to such ridiculously stupid places.
The dog.
That are even, I mean, Paul,
even
you
more.
don't even know. Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel like, There should be some kind of like, Last of Us or whatever style, like you can fail every race and still continue, just so you could like skip to the end, Paul, and just see what the last chapter's like.
We'll finish it.
So stupid.
I will complete it, but it is yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that also brings up like the difficulty, and we can kind of get back to the gameplay, because I think the gameplay is like the big thing that actually matters. Like, not liking the story is whatever. I think the gameplay is what's throwing some people off. I have this like, kind of like traditionalist, old head, stupid, stick in the mud kind of mentality, where it's like when Ridge Racer introduced boosting, I was like, this is stupid. I just need to drive. Don't complicate things with bullshit I don't need. And today, obviously, it's like everyone's got their like, kind of twitchy ADD game that's like, you have to build a house while you're in a firefight, and there's also 17 meters to manage, and it's ridiculous, and I hate that about modern gaming. So I really didn't think that part of Screamer was going to gel with me, because you have to, and as I'm sure Paul will get into, none of this is explained as well as it could be. They make an effort, but they don't make enough of an effort. Mm-hmm. I benefited from having to review this game, so I got to access to guides and things, including like somebody shared like just a fan-made guide before the game came out that was like really in depth and like really professional. Like Milestone should hire those people. And there are all these systems, and it introduces you to them slowly, but there still can be a lingering feeling that you haven't completely grasped it. And the first one is basically the boosting, the sync, the energy that you generate to be able to boost, and you get that through like shifting at the upshifting at the right time. There's also the SGU thing. I think is something that they absolutely explain the worst. Like everything else, I could get a grasp on, but it's like sync gen up, I think is what it stands for. Okay. And it basically it's accelerated generation of boost, the meter that you use for boost, when you're at the top of whatever gear you're in. But they really don't tell you that. Like, so it's just, okay, I'm driving fast, things are flashing, like I'm seeing like the meter kind of pulse, I guess I'm doing the right thing, right? So you just kind of have to trust it for a while. Mm-hmm. And then it's actually a very long time before they introduce the combat side of things, which is you use boost, which then generates this other thing called entropy, which you can use to strike other characters and cause KOs. I actually think that's really cool, and not enough people are actually giving the game credit for this. I think the idea of you boost to then generate something that you use for combat, and then if you succeed in the combat portion, you get boost back. I think that's a cool cycle. I don't know. I think that's really clever. Whether or not it actually manifests as well as it should in gameplay, I don't know, when you're doing like a multiplayer race and stuff, but there's something satisfying about that cycle conceptually to me.
Yeah. I think like you say, the loop that they're trying to create is definitely admirable. I think there's a good level of quality to what they're trying to achieve. I think for me, where I don't feel as excited about it is in the actual execution when you're actually in events, because I think like for me, we were talking about this, Adam, when we were doing some multiplayer races, but like I don't really view this as a car racing game so much as an anti-gravity combat game that happens to be based around cars. And the best games, in my opinion, within that genre are ones that can kind of actively balance this idea that you can be combat focused or you can be speed focused. So it encourages this capability. Like for Wipeout, for example, it's the whole fucking like collect item, throw away, collect item, throw away, gain shield from throwing item away, wait till you get a green one so you can use a boost or whatever, and then you keep going. So like if you're somebody who prefers to play in a way where you're kind of prioritising your speed and quickness, you're not really penalised. However, in Screamer, if you don't engage with the combat mechanic, you're going to earn boost at like a third less speed than somebody who just wants to decimate everybody. And I think that's where the challenge becomes for me, because then it becomes an illusion of choice. It doesn't really matter that you're earning the strike. So it doesn't really matter that you want to just focus on getting boost, because unless you're using your strikes proficiently, then the person who is doing both well is going to do better. Now, obviously that's a gameplay choice, and some people might actually prefer that over having the choice between being somebody who prioritizes speed over combat. But where, once again, I'm not sure I agree with that sort of argument, as the game goes out of its way to introduce many different systems, including passive abilities, but there's still no real passive ability that taps into the inherent speed of a character. Like, once again, if you want to tie it into narrative elements, like, there's no reason Noboru should want to strike anybody, given what he went through, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But the game just kind of throws that away at one point once he gets over his fear, and it's like, we'll just kill people over and over again, it's fine. So like, even in terms of like class-based systems, when you think about like Overwatch and games like that, the abilities are kind of based around what traits the characters have, and I think that's where the missing component is for me. I feel like you need people who prioritise aggression, like Roshin, for example, because she can do a strike quicker than anybody else, so it ties into her gameplay loop. But I don't think there's a counterbalance in the game for somebody who maybe wants to prioritise generating boost 1.5 times quicker or that sort of thing. So it's like, this is all said through the lens of like if they wanted to have a fair and even game, but like we've always talked about in this show, sometimes that's not what you want. Like, you just want to have fun and have an unbalanced game. And for me, I think the gameplay concept is really cool, but I think when you play other people who also know how to play this game, that's where it starts to fall apart a little bit, because if you get stuck in a pack during an online race, hell mend you. Like, it's an absolute nightmare to play. But that's kind of how I feel. But I don't know, Paul, what your thoughts are so far.
Yeah, I think training your boost for the attack stuff is cool, but as I've said to you guys, I still think the UI is so hard to understand, and that has to be a specific human thing, right? Because plenty of people understand it. It's like, I don't understand half the time why I'm getting boost. The SGU stuff is still not clear to me really why I'm getting it. I know it's from the rev limit you are in the gear, right? But the game auto changes for you anyway, so it's like, well, you can't hold the gear. You can manually upshift, which I like, and I like the active reloading, kind of like Gears of War, right? I think that's a really cool mechanic. But it's never really clear. It's just, I'm just getting it. But what is clear is being able to boost to then get your attack power. I think that's quite neat. But I think the characters are having different abilities. That's pretty subtle, if that's a thing.
You won't have unlocked it yet, Paul. It's another thing that comes later.
Okay, I was going to say, if that's a thing, if that's the case, you should be able to pick your character at the start of an event, because then you can choose an ability like a character in Smash Brothers or like I say, a weapon system in Wipeout, like a pickup or something. Like, you can choose how you play it, but it depends how different those characters are between each other. Obviously, I don't know. Yeah, it sounds like I've not unlocked that yet. Yeah, so
they are very passive, I would say. I don't know if you agree, Adam, in terms of the abilities. Like, some of them are more apparent than others, but it's not like anything that truly changes the way you would play the game.
I do like how some of them, like the fact that all the SFR cards have like the hype meter and the hype is generated differently. I do think that's kind of cool. But again, it's like, it's a complication. It's not necessarily like, it's not really changing the game. One is like, the more you drift, you get hype, and then does hype give you entropy or sync? I can't remember.
Depends what character it is, I'm sure.
Depends what character. Yeah. I will say, Paul, with the UI thing, I think just from repetition, I eventually got the gist of it. But the one thing I do think is like a complete UI fail is that they put like, so left bumper or L1 is going to be your shifting and your boost.
Mm-hmm.
You hold down for boost. Your right bumper or R1 is going to be
shield and attack.
Your attack. Yeah, it's going to be your strike and it's going to be your shield.
Yeah.
But the shield does not consume entropy like the strike does. It consumes sync. It consumes your boost. And they
put it on the other side.
I still constantly like run into this problem, and I'll forget, where I'll be like, why can't I shield? I have entropy. I'm like, oh right, it's on the left side of the screen, not the right side that everything else is on. Yeah. And so like, yeah, things like that. I do think they probably could have benefited from like, and I think somebody else might have said this, but like a split second kind of like putting more elements near the car.
Yeah.
Because I think what they do with the boost timing and putting that in the middle of the screen actually works very well. And I think maybe if they did that with some other things as well, it could work well. You don't want to have like a billion different like, you know, button icons and shit like that hanging off the side of the car. But yeah, they're definitely, I'd be very curious as to like what other prototypes they might have for the UI, because it is a lot of information to convey when everything is exploding.
Yeah, and because the environments are busy, and I don't mean that in a negative way, they are very busy, like Mario Kart tracks are busy, and it works. There's so much going on in the environment. To have the UI having so much information, I find it very hard to read. Maybe that's just because I'm fucking old, right? It's old, and I just it becomes harder. But one thing I did do actually is remap the controls to have cross on PlayStation to be upshift and square to be attack. Because I always have cross and upshift anyway, like in racing games. So and that works better because it's hard to have the triggers for throttle and brake, predominantly throttle, and then using the two bumpers as well on PlayStation I found quite hard. So, but remapping them was definitely a benefit. Which brings
how do you find? Well, I was going to ask then, how do you find the drifting then? Because that's the big issue, is that you then have to pull off the right stick.
Yeah, that is harder to do, but I think it's a lesser of two evils effectively.
Okay.
But yeah, that's still that's hard, and you can see why they put them on the bumpers, because they have the right stick drifting. Because I tried the left stick doing both, and that's just super twitchy. It doesn't work. I mean, you can do it, but I definitely that's an elegant solution at all.
Yeah, no one seems to prefer that.
No, and there's an accessibility option as well, but I've not tried that. But I think I'm not sure what that does, to be honest. But yeah.
Yeah. I think when you get into some of the races, I can't remember. There's a track kind of like in the third chapter, I think you're introduced to, which is in like the forest, and it's got a lot of switchbacks. And at that point, like you're also in the place where now there's like entropy and there's striking and stuff like that. The combat element's fully introduced. You get into the first corner and it's just every single car piles up on the outside wall because the corner's too tight. And that is and no one's moving. And it's like, that's a moment where I'm like, this doesn't feel very well maybe designed.
Some of the tracks are
feels
very
kind
twisty.
of clunky. Yeah. And it very much is like kind of a momentum and like a feel-based game too, where like when I am hitting the apexes, I'm drifting the way I want to drift, or like I'm driving in a way where things are flowing nicely, like the game feels great. But if something knocks me out of that rhythm, and especially on a track like that where it's just switchbacks, like it can take a very long time to get your bearings back.
Yeah.
It can be a lot of pain before you're really moving again, and gaining speed. Because like the catch up is pretty severe against you, but not helpful for you.
Completely.
It's like, it's not like a Burnout thing where it's like Burnout, you know, you'd have a car that was like 16 seconds ahead and then a couple checkpoints, and now it's only 4 seconds ahead, right? As long as you don't crash. This game doesn't work that way. I mean, the difficulty, and this is I guess a great way to go into difficulty discussion. If, you know, you see like, oh, Gabrielle's in first place, he's like, I don't know, 2,000 meters ahead of you, like you're not catching him. You know, unless maybe you're aware of the shortcuts, because those can be very powerful, but earlier in the game you probably wouldn't be. You're not catching him. And yeah, the difficulty has really divided people. I'm not saying it was perfect for me, but I just saying, I was like, I don't want to turn it down because I feel like I'm winning some races too easily, and I don't want to turn it up because other ones are a complete pain in the ass. So I don't know, but definitely there are some races where it does spike for sure.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because obviously us three were talking about it, and then I was looking on other forums and our Discord, and some people are just like, I've just given up. It's too hard for me, even on balanced. Whereas like stuff like you, Brend, was saying, well, I kind of just wafted through the game without any issue at all. It's interesting that.
Yeah.
It's, guess some people just connected with the mechanics and the systems more easily than others and really struggled with it.
I think it probably does come down to that quite a lot, because a lot of the objectives, especially in the early game, aren't actually about winning or driving well. It is more about learn this system, do this thing, and if people are already struggling to kind of get to grips with the handling model, then it probably creates a bit of an exercise in pain, because you're not just trying to finish top 3 anymore. Now you're being asked to do 3 strikes to this very specific person, or like, even once again, just to go back to UI elements, there's a team called Green Reapers, and they're always in blue. Like, they're always in the blue team, and I like, it's just one of those weird things for me. It's like, you're not giving people a chance, man. Like it's just one of those simple little things. It's like, because at first I thought, oh, maybe it's just that one event, but no, every time there's a team race, they will always be the blue team, and they're called Green Reapers.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, it's a really strange. Like, and it's nothing, it doesn't really matter until you're doing an event where it says, like, oh, destroy 3 Green Reaper cars. But like you're saying, Paul, if somebody's kind of noped out of the story or checked out to the point where they don't recognise the actual vehicles or care to look at the tiny portraits in the corner, then it's another element to think mid-race, right, where is that the guy I have to get? Is that the right one? Like, it just adds another bit of confusion in there. So, difficulty-wise for me, the most issue I had was when... Well, I didn't actually know what a perfect boost was. That was the one I struggled. It took me 8 tries. That's the one that took me the most tries. I didn't, because that's the one that doesn't come up a pop-up, right? Like, I'm sure every other system gives you a pop-up, but I cannot remember for the life of me if it does it for...
I seem to remember it mentioning it, doing it, but then it's gone so quickly and it never comes back.
I'm sure it says it in a later mission. The very first one you do around the stadium, I could be misremembering here, but there's another event where I think it's Lavinia's special ability is the fact her perfect boost things changes, and it comes up the description describing what perfect boost is, but I cannot remember it in that first instance. I might have just clicked past it by accident, but I was at a loss. I was so close to typing in the Discord chat with you guys, like, if I just like completely missed something, that was the only time I felt it. Every other system I was fine. The perfect boost thing just threw me for a loop, because I thought it was like you hold in L1 to initiate the pop-up appearing, and then you tap it again when it gets to the smaller triangle. But obviously you're supposed to just hold it in until it reaches that triangle. So
yeah, it was just before, right? You let go. But I watch a YouTube video on that one, because I didn't. I think that window is a little bit tight on that one.
That reminds me, who is a character? It might be Roshin, but who is a character where when you finish a strike, if you keep holding L1...
Roshin. Yeah.
Roshin, it continues. Yeah. They don't explain that well enough at all. I was so confused. Because the way they make it sound...
You keep tapping the button?
The way they make it sound, when her strike ends, you immediately get another strike and can use it. But they want you to hold the button the entire time. And that, like, that is just a case of really bad communication. Because, look, I think part of the reason why I'm willing to forgive some of it being not as well explained as it could is because I absolutely hate, like, my hell is like the beginning of Burnout Paradise, where they spend, like, 20 minutes explaining to you how boost works, and I want to die, and it's unskippable, right? I hate that shit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I'd rather, die by my own sword than have to sit through that. But it definitely could have been done better, and maybe that is like sort of showing you a video sort of with button presses on the screen to show you exactly what's happening. Because like kind of the still images and stuff isn't really enough.
I also thought the triangle meant, because it says in the pop-up, hold in L1 and then release the button or something like that, it says. I thought it meant the actual triangle button on the controller, because I was playing with a PlayStation pad. So like I was holding an L1 and then rapidly tapping triangle, because like it's probably just a dense me moment, right, in that case. But and like because of the way it was described, like you're saying, Adam, in terms of the wording was vague enough, I was like, does this triangle sometimes become circle, like square? Is that what it means?
Yeah.
Like, or
it's not quite clear enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone's at a different place on that. I think probably good to just go into like sort of the reception and all that and the price and stuff, because like again, like we're talking, I think we all have some level of appreciation for a game. We might fall in different places for the gameplay, but for me, like real quick, I found it extremely polished. Like I think that was really a big part of it, was like I have played so many, especially like UE5 games that are buggy and stuttery and awful, like EAWRC, for example, that just like do not run well on my PC or look really bad on console. And I was playing this on my PC and I was floored how smooth it ran, how cohesive the art style was, how beautiful everything was. I didn't notice any sort of crazy glitches or like, bugs outside of the communication things, which is more just like not good copy there. The game wasn't crashing. The menus are beautiful. The music is good. Like it just felt, I think that aspect of it took me back to a place where, you go back 15 years where games were just more polished. And even 15 years ago, like that's when you get into like, patches on like 360 and PS3 and games were starting to launch a little bit fucked up. So maybe like 20 years ago, like it just felt really, really polished and in like a really good place. Like they really had a lot of time to sharpen the game and hone the game. And they didn't just send it out there. Yeah. And that matters a lot to me, which is why I can forgive it being $60. Now, do I think that it would help if the game was cheaper? Absolutely. But I guess, we've seen a lot of discussion, especially in like the Discord, about, how you determine value of a game, how you determine price, especially in a time where money doesn't go as far as it did. The economy is shit for, everyone everywhere around the world. And there's a lot of things going on. People only have a certain amount of money to spend on things. I get that. I mean, budgeting is like 100%. You have to budget everything. I get it. And I feel that way too. And it's the kind of thing where it's like, if this game, if it doesn't speak to you, it doesn't speak to you. That's fine. But I think I just see like sort of the vision of what they went for here and the way they committed to it and the way they executed it, even if it's not like a roundly, objectively like great or perfect game. They committed to it and it's so different than everything else out there. I think they get to choose what they charge for it. And that doesn't mean like if they charge like, fucking whatever the hell GTA 6 is going to cost, that would be dumb. But like, I think $60, I get it. Like I completely get it. They clearly spent a lot of money on the art, on the music, on the character modeling, on all that shit. Like I'm sure like the concept art for this game just has to like, fill an entire room. Like it has all that going for it. And so I think I'm willing to forgive it for that reason. But I think a lot of people are afraid just based on it's a new IP. It's a really weird concept. And, on PC, you get the benefit of being able to just try for a bit on Steam, but you don't have that on console. A demo, I think everyone can agree, would probably help a lot.
Yeah. Although it could do more damage than good with it. It's really struggle with the onboarding. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's hard for me being a game developer to complain about game prices because I know how much games cost to make and how long it takes. Yeah. But I also think you get a lot of value out of Screamer. Like the story's big and there's a lot of tracks and there's loads of cars and all the cars are upgradable and customizable and there's loads of game modes and all that sort of stuff. And I think there's a good amount of content in that game, and it's £50 in the UK. So I guess it's about equivalent. But yeah, that was never the value of it was never an issue for me. I never thought it was too expensive. But I guess it's a bonus because most games here are £70 now. Although weirdly, as we were discussing, Resident Evil's cheaper than that, which is odd, but fair enough. Yeah, but the polish level is incredible. Like even on a base PS5, it was running at 60 frames a second, no drops, like really fast loading, looks incredible, no shader stuttering or anything like that. You got maybe Unreal Engine's just gone through a huge upgrade, and it's that's a thing of the past now. I'm not sure, but it's really slick presentation.
To be fair, probably benefits from the fact that it's also, it's all circuit based. So it's not loading a big open world, right? I think that was one of the issues that really hurt WRC. But sorry, Brent.
No, I was just going to say, like, it's one of these kind of issues because I don't personally have an issue with the price, as in, like, I've played it for 22 hours now, I think, in total, and played through the entire story mode, and I've had some good races online with friends, and it's been enjoyable. I think it's just like the value proposition in video games is so heavily skewed now because, Adam, you made the point about free-to-play games and the total lack of value for money those offer compared to something like Cyberpunk 2077 can also launch at £45 for some reason. That's like you're saying, Paul, about like Resident Evil. Like,
huge game, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not fair to compare it, but like both are cyberpunk aesthetic games, right? And you can look at a screenshot of like Night City, for example, and it's like, even now for me, the gold standard of how a world can look, not necessarily interact and everything, that's a different topic, but like, I also, and this is an issue that, so I put a tweet out, resurrected the Twitter account just to try and get as much of a litmus test as possible, because the best thing Screamer has done is make people want to talk about it, and that's always a good thing. I think like a racing game people actually want to talk about, that's doesn't happen very often these days, right?
Yeah.
So
despite Milestone's best efforts to not have people talk about it, which
yeah, I mean, that tweet's got more impressions than the official posts when I was looking.
Oof.
So
yeah,
you're welcome, Milestone. But like, the thing that really annoys me is, right, I can definitely see the polish that we're talking about here, and you feel it when you're playing it. But at the same time, like, the environments are very generic, all things considered, right? Like, there's a forest for some reason, there's a desert for some reason, there's one city location, and then the final location's class. I really enjoy the final stuff. I don't want to ruin it for people who obviously don't know it yet. But it is a really simple game in terms of the environmental side of things. Like, the great card design and character design, in my opinion, isn't actually really that corroborated very well with how the tracks look and the feel and environments of them. It's very standard stuff, I would say. I mean, obviously, it doesn't sound like you guys agree with that directly, which is fine. I just feel like it doesn't really... I would never be able to tell you the names of any of these tracks.
Yeah.
And
I like the city a lot. I do think actually the city's really cool.
Do you know the names of any of the tracks?
No, I don't.
Factory,
I think one's
city, forest.
I think one's like Olympia Stadium or something like that. It's the one where you're literally drifting around the stadium.
There's one called Race to the Heavens. Yeah. That's cool. And Race to the Heavens is a great track. But my point is...
no,
like,
I get it. Yeah.
It's like... You can... It's missing that, do you know what I mean? Like, the most obvious basic example is fucking Mario Circuit or some shit like that. Like, but like, you think about other racing games, there's always that track, and it's like that is the Screamer track, and I feel like people will base that around the best races they've had rather than the actual tracks themselves. And like, for example, you were talking about the one that's like crazy in the forest with all the like, almost like toge fucking like drifting and stuff, and that's a really cool track, and yet I still don't know what it's called. Like,
I got it completely wrong. I think I called it like Devil's Head or Snake's Tail or something. And all of those are wrong, but that's what it is in my head.
Yeah. I guess I'm rambling a bit here, right? But my point is, like, much like the story in some ways, there's like a lot of content here, and I almost wish it was just curated a little bit more to accompany the polish of the overall experience, just to kind of give it that little bit of like rememberability, because like in a month's time, in 6 months' time, if you talk about Screamer, what will you talk about beyond the complicated or kind of unique handling model and such? It's in terms of a typical racing game experience, and this is me trying to, in a long-winded way, get back to one of the complaints. In terms of a typical racing game experience, I don't think it has that depth of like content, not in terms of number, but in terms of quality, that will make people think, oh, that was a banger. And that's where I'm a bit worried, and not worried, because who cares at the end of the day? Milestone made the game they want to make. I enjoy it. We've talked about varying levels of enjoyment, but like, it's why people can come onto that tweet and be like, looks like a mobile game. Because, yeah, you're right, there's a car on the track in a random forest with a massive triangle in front of the car. Like, if you devalue it to that level, then you're going to say stuff like that. And I think it's a shame, because Screamer doesn't really deserve those sort of comments. But I do think in isolation, if I look at Grid Legends, I can tell that that's a well put together, expensive game. I think Screamer, because it does kind of lean a little bit into a little bit of genericness and in isolation. If you look at a screenshot here and there and that sort of thing, it totally removes the great soundtrack, the amazing menu design and all that sort of stuff. So I think for me, that's where the issue comes, in terms of like, we're valuing this at the £50 value proposition, but I just don't know if it has that like clout, I guess, to kind of work with that price point. So I know it was a big waffling rant there, but hopefully it sort of makes sense.
No, I mean, I'll be dragged into a free-to-play game when my friends, drag me into one. But like, for the most part, I avoid them. And I do think it kind of has the problem of it. There is an aspect of Screamer where you can clearly see, like, they want this. I mean, a lot of people compare it to a fighting game. I think Milestone themselves compare it to a fighting game. They want the competitive side of this game, even if the systems maybe aren't as perfect in practice as they want them to be. They want that, I think, to be the legacy of this game after you finish the story. And the problem with that is that when you charge so much and you can't convince people that the game is worth it, then you don't get that big. I mean, it's sad, but the player counts are so low. Like, you don't get that competitive engine kind of keeping the game alive. And then what do you have? Everyone's talking about like, well, Milestone games go down in price eventually, and we'll see then. I mean, I don't know. I feel like every single time a game goes down in price, some people pick it up, but the conversation on the game has passed. The record is done and it's shown. And I mean, that game is just what it was when it came out. If it does go down in price and you're on the fence about trying it and it drops like $30 or something like that, of course I recommend you give it a shot. But yeah, I found that as much as I like the game and as much as it meant to me in like the 14 hours that I did the tournament mode, I'm finding it hard to push myself to go and play online, just because there's this overriding sense that online is dead. And that's like a really bad conversation to have around your game 2 weeks after it launched, right?
It's dead, and also there's nothing there. Like, I mean, it's very much a Sega Rally online arcade, Outrun online arcade thing of like,
so there's no structure to it, isn't it? There's no progress.
Races. There's no progress, there's no ranking system, there's no unlocks tied to multiplayer, which is a positive, I guess, overall. Yeah, so it's like you're saying, if they're aiming for that fighting game model, and then even just like, so somebody in the Discord, RX Chris, good friend of the show, posted that his game glitched and showed what the currently locked ranked mode is going to be. And it's a full squad mode for a game with this player count. Like,
interesting.
Surely they've got to reconsider that, because how often are people going to rock up with two of their friends and four times four? Let's say you're really going to fill a 16-player lobby with 4 teams, or that's terrible maths from me, actually. But you get my point.
I wonder if it's just player awareness though, right? Sorry, like people just aren't aware that the game's come out, or it's not in the zeitgeist of people talking about it. As obviously, as you were saying at the start, like Forza Horizons, what are we at? What, a month out from that coming? So maybe that's what people, it's maybe just not aware. It's out. It's on Xbox, Screamer. Yeah, it's
on everything except Switch 2, which is also a miss because I think it would actually do decently on Switch 2 of any platform.
Gear Club does well there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's that unveil 2 years ago or whatever did so much more for the game than Milestone has done since. And, you know, I mean, I reviewed it very, very highly. I historically didn't really do scores on the drive, but I'm like, we should do scores like we do scores for cars and shit. So I gave it a 9. I stand by it because that's what the game means to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's got like last I saw was a 77 on Metacritic, which is not bad. It's fine.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't see. Surely there are people out there who are very positive on it, and it's not like, you know, I haven't seen like the tweet from Milestone or whatever, the post, the Instagram that's like, you know, so and so says, you know, great story or whatever, you know, whatever. Like, it just feels like they put so much love into the game, they put it out there, and then I guess expected just that to speak for itself, things that people might remember from 2 years ago, and
they've not even made a tweet about the game since the 26th of March.
Yeah,
like,
that's crazy.
What? The last post they made was about MotoGP 26.
Yeah. I did look at that a few, like when I was doing my review, I think a couple days later I looked at it, I was like, just to see if they, and they're already talking about MotoGP and Ride or whatever, and I'm just like, and that is the fear, right? Because if you finish the story, this game does everything in its power to set up a sequel. There's a million things are left stones unturned, right? I really wonder if they're going to get it. There is a part of me that feels like you wouldn't do that if you didn't already kind of have the sequel mapped out and planned, which is why I do have some faith that they're going to continue it.
Yeah.
I mean, Milestone made this game that, like, frankly, nobody really asked for. I'm happy they made it. Of course, I love it. But I feel like I could see them just, we made 2 games nobody really asked for, right? Like, they really seem to believe in it against all good sense. And, you know, maybe that initial reveal was like got everyone talking and got them really jazzed on it or whatever. But like, I don't know. I feel like we might get a sequel, but it won't have deserved it from, you know, the barnstorming success of this game's launch for sure. It'll be just because they wanted to do it.
So I think looking at all their games, they're all games that I recognize being on PlayStation Plus. So maybe that'll get their player number up massively, and maybe that is when they introduce the ranked mode when that game moves to the PlayStation Plus catalog. And some games move quite quickly to it. You know, it could be by like end of summer or wintertime this year. It can move over there, get it on Game Pass, get it on PS Plus.
Yeah. Brent, you also brought up the possibility that they price the game high, knowing they price the game high, and this isn't, you know, the quote unquote real price, but it's, you know, it gets saps like me saying that it's worth $60, and then, you know, they'll put it out for what they really intended to charge for the masses. But
yeah, I mean, it's almost like the inverse of early access type model in a way. It's early adopters get them in and then kind of adjust from there. And like you're saying, Milestone games do have a very noticeable pattern when it comes to their pricing, so maybe it's a company-wide thing they do with all of their games, potentially. I mean, maybe a bit of copium on my side, right, in terms of just like, because everybody sees the decent word of mouth and takes the logic of when it gets reduced, I'll buy it. When it finally gets reduced, and maybe you do get that second surge of buyers. But I'm kind of taking back to the discussions we had about Tokyo Extreme Racer in the Discord way back, and how that flew out of the gates like incredibly. And there were people that were absolutely certain when it came out of early access it would get even bigger and that sort of thing, but obviously that isn't usually how it goes. So like you were saying, Adam, there's this weird inverse effect where I think when a game gets reduced, the value in the eyes of the consumer also kind of gets attracted. It's like, why is that reduced? I'm going to hold off on that. And then, like you say, Paul, you really need to be in that full-on free game for like people to actually try it now. But I mean, that's how the Nintendo model works, right? They charge full price for half games and fucking like most content light thing you can imagine. But the price holds, and people still buy it because the price holds. I just recently sold 3 Nintendo Switch games the other week there for like £98 in total. So like,
oh my god,
I only lost like £14 over 5 years or something like that in terms of value. And yeah, sadly for Milestone, in a way, it's like people maybe don't think that's a stamp that deserves full price, even though with a game like this, I think we'd all agree, in an ideal world, every racing game fan gives it a go anyway, because we need these more original experiences to be commanding a top dollar, because then the publishers care and it snowballs from there, because this is where it gets a bit more macro in scale, I think. Like, I don't think Screamer was ever prominent enough to be a blemish on the idea of arcade racers commanding a high price, but I think it could have been a flag bearer for there's a market for this and people are caring about it. But I go on the release trailer on YouTube and the top comment on the PlayStation uploaded trailer is, "We want Blur 2. Like, no, you don't. You wouldn't buy it again. So like, it's just like, this is just for me racing games all over. Let's be honest. People screaming for what they want, and then it happens, and nobody puts their money where their mouth is. They'll go for the next festival slot game. Like, not throwing shade there, right? But I'm just saying, like, it's something that when most people think about what commands a high price now, it's like, well, the Crew Motorfest wasn't really full price either, but there's definitely a lot of festival games out there, and those seem to be the main ones we get in terms of full price racers now.
They should put the price up. You know, like the consoles are going up in price. They should put the game up in price. Just try it.
Yeah. That's a good point. Why not?
Yeah, everyone's talking about, hating to see in a couple of years the best, the gem of a racing game, Arcade Racer, that you didn't play. They're talking about this like they talked about Blur, like Split Second, like Onrush.
Right.
It sucks. It just you don't want to think about that happening, but I don't know. I mean, half the time you'll see shit called like, this secret best racing game ever, and it's like the most obvious thing, that everybody knows existed. So yeah, I guess YouTube isn't a good barometer for that, but
gonna have some great video essays in a few years' time, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think I've said everything I can say about this game without just going into how batshit the last chapter is. Does anybody else have any parting thoughts?
I'm going to finish the story. I am going to keep chipping away at it.
You need to let us know how you find it, Paul.
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, despite, I mean, it's the nature of these sorts of podcasts, we spend a lot of time talking about the parts that stand out to us in a negative light or a critical way, but I do generally like feel that I'm really glad that I ended up giving the game a chance and playing through it, because it's probably the arcade racing game I've enjoyed the most since Project Cars 3, actually. I was thinking about this the other day, the last kind of full price arcade racer I played that left enough of an impression on me to have wanted it to be something a little bit more, while simultaneously wishing more people got involved in it. And weirdly enough, the closest proximity of that for me was Project Cars 3, because for some god knows unknown reason I really liked that game. Yeah.
Ian would be happy.
Yeah, that's it, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad that I did give it a go, and obviously, Adam, that you wrote that kind of glowing review for it as well, because like you talk about a lot in that article, we aren't in a golden era where original ideas across video games always get the attention and polish and potential audience that may follow a lot nowadays. We're very much, it feels that we're sort of in a zero-sum game where everything wants to be Fortnite, and Fortnite doesn't want to be Fortnite anymore. So it's a weird scenario where we don't really have a clue where the main gaming audience is going, whether that be Roblox or whatever. So it's like anytime we see something like this come through the market, does feel like, I think you said, Adam, it is that like early 2000s. You've went to Tesco or Asda and they've got a game stall, and they've got Screamer there, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna give that a go. I'm gonna give it a go and see what it's like because I've got some birthday money left over. And that's the sort of feeling it invoked in me. It was very much I wasn't expecting much here, but this has been enjoyable.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, to me, it's like the argument about like, oh, it's a new IP, oh, the control's weird. I don't know. It's like every IP that you love now was at one time new. And if you go back like 20, 25 years when there were a lot more racing games than there are today, I mean, there were always just weird ideas coming out of nowhere. I don't think like when Blur and Split Second happened, maybe it's just, you know, maybe you guys remember differently. I don't remember that feeling like this is our last chance. It was like, these are cool ideas and they're different. But it didn't feel like if these games fail, nobody's going to try and make a game like this again. Like even in the 360 PS3 days, and certainly before that, games were cheap enough to make. They were less time intensive to make, that you could take a punt on some weird ideas and those weird ideas might work out. And that's just not how it works anymore. And, you know, it's no one individual's job to support Milestone because they made this game and more people should make games like this, right? But I do think that, yeah, I think that as fans, not that you have to show up for everything, but I think that, I mean, hell, even the people that don't buy this game, like, you know, maybe don't call it like mobile slop racer or whatever. Like, I just feel like, you know, just be willing that, like, just happy, even if you don't buy the game, if it's like not for you, just like, you know, they took a chance. They did something weird. They did something that's completely outside of the realm of every single other product they have ever made. And is way more ambitious. I think what like makes me the most sad to think about, not even like the game not getting a sequel, because I am not committed to that idea at all, but it's just this, you know, it's a chilling effect, not even on the whole market. It's just like, it would just suck for the people who worked on this game, who were really energized by it, to then the takeaway being like, all right, I guess we'll do Hot Wheels 3 and next year's MotoGP game, and that's all we can do. You know, that's just a sad thought. Like, you want to see teams empowered to do weird shit and do the shit that they care about, right? So I hope that feeling within Milestone doesn't die, and I don't know how, you know, I don't think I want to see a story mode in the next ride, but I hope that that they can at least like come away from this and be proud of and recognize the things that are unassailably great, like the polish, like the art, like the music, things like that.
Are Milestone self-owned? Are they their own entity, or are they owned by a bigger company?
I think they, yeah, I can't remember who they belong to, but I think they do belong to someone. Should just look that up.
Koch Media.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. That's the one. Yeah.
2019.
So which are they?
Although they're now known as Austrian. Sorry, Austrian.
Okay.
Yeah, I wonder how much control they have over. Yeah, interesting, because they make a lot of bike games, MotoGP ride.
Oh my
stuff.
God! And it's amazing because they don't handle well. They're not they are the most like bland feeling games. It's kind of amazing that they've made a career out of that, but yeah.
But someone said the next ride's going to be, is it open world? Is that right? I've not seen anything on that at all if they've announced it. Or...
I saw somebody say that they want you to think it's open world, like they want you to think it's Forza Horizon for bikes, but it really isn't. Like that's still track based and stuff.
Okay, I was going to say dirt bikes off open world would be fucking cool, but
yeah. Well, the funny thing about that is like it's trading on. It's like, what if we gave you like the vibes of a festival racer, which I hate, without any of the benefit of a festival racer, which is like a cool world to explore, right? Yeah.
Yeah. They're obviously just teasing Ride 7. That'll be the open world one, maybe. I think like Horizon for bikes would be as cool as you can take that concept at this point, I guess, just to give it something a bit different. I think that could be fairly interesting. Adam's just looking at me like
No, I just like I was just thinking about where could you take Horizon, and sometimes I wonder how much Playground Games asks themselves that question, but that's this topic for another episode. So Screamer, there's a lot to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the conversation we've had. Then there would still be more to talk about. It'll be interesting to see, what potentially happens with the conversation around this game going forward, if there is a conversation when that price drop comes. If they make a Switch 2 version, that would be a good home for it, and hopefully by then they have the sense to not price it at $60.
I'd probably double dip as well.
Yeah. Oh,
to be
really?
honest.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think like if it launched at the kind of Grid Legends type price range on Switch 2, like that kind of 25-30 mark, I'd be tempted just out of curiosity.
Yeah, maybe throw in the the liveries, the Acura car, they dangle in front of you to get you to spend more money.
Yeah.
I think that's about the show.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else really to say here.
Like a shooting star, maybe say that.
Like a shooting star. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Name of the episode sorted.
Episode title, yeah.
Great place to end it. All right. Bye, everybody.
See you later.